So, how would you define water resources as an engineering subdiscipline?
Sure. So, as you know, there's different subdisciplines. So you can specialize in construction, geotech, structures, environmental, water resources, and water resources looks at all kinds of stuff. It looks at, of course, in the name, water, and how water behaves both in a built environment and then also in a natural environment. And the neat thing about water resources is that it touches all of the other disciplines. So learning about water resources can't be independent of of an understanding of geotech engineering, because water hits the ground, needs to infiltrate into soil, needs to infiltrate into an aquifer, and all of that has to do with water resources. After that water hits the ground, it can also go into a lake or a river or stream. So there's a lot of overlap with hydrology and hydrological engineering, and the hydrological sciences. As water interacts with a built environment, it can be very destructive in a large sense, and it can be very beneficial in other senses. And so, as a water resource engineer, we need to learn how to respect water, but also be able to use water in an environmental sense. So I see water resources as something that is important to all aspects of civil engineering, and that's one of the reasons why I really like it, because I don't just have to focus on one thing, like being a structural engineer and understanding how to do stress strain diagrams. I get to look at and interact with people from all different backgrounds and disciplines and contribute to an aspect of a project, or projects in and of themselves that have to do with water resources. So it spans anything from, looking at storm drain systems and building dams and reservoirs, to understanding groundwater flow and looking at water budgets and such. So lots of applications.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
And what type of work would you describe an entry-level water resource engineer doing in comparison to those that have been in the industry for 10 or 20 years?
Yeah, sure. So, I think one thing when students graduate, and because I had this same mentality, is we think we're going to go out and we're going to lead these big projects, and we're going to be in charge of a project ourselves. Taking a step back from that, I remember my first job, and I showed up and they kind of put me in a cubicle and said, all right, show me how you can do really good at making these AutoCAD drawings. I thought, this is great. I'm going to do AutoCAD drawings. I'm going to do them all for this huge water resource project. No, I had to do an AutoCAD drawing of this little tiny drainage swale. And not only I just had to do the cross sections of it. Somebody else was in charge of doing the overall design, and there was like 3 engineers between me and that person. And what I realized is that really, really quickly was that I wanted to be leading engineering projects. But in order to do that, I needed to spend some time at the ground level and getting experience technically. And so as an entry-level water resource engineer, I think you'll spend a lot of time building your technical toolbox. And what that means is really diving into hydrological processes, hydraulic design, but building different pieces of it. And through understanding different parts and pieces of a project over time, that then builds to an overall understanding of how to lead a project. And so I think different opportunities to be involved as an entry-level water resource engineer, includes being in charge of a small portion of a design and developing your technical skills even more. And that's something that, I think a lot of times, again, we graduate from college, we think, all right, we're done with the textbooks and such, but I think the water resources engineers that really go and make it and become those movers and shakers are those that then say, all right, I learned this sometime, or I heard about this, now I need to take that the next step and go deeper into these issues. And so I think the entry level positions, you'll spend a lot of time going deep into different things, whether that be learning a numerical modeling software or doing a lot of modeling, or potentially going out and doing some field work. And then also trying to find experiences where you can interact with clients and customers and other engineers that you can ultimately work with and that you work for.
Okay, and next we have, would you say advanced degrees would be required or recommended to get into this field?
Yeah, the couple things on advanced degrees. So first, I think as an engineer, ultimately every engineer needs a master's degree at the end of the day. It's one thing to have an undergrad degree, and that'll get you so far, but it's not going to get you into those leadership positions. So depending on where the person wants to go, if they're just okay taking entry level positions and staying in entry level positions, but then by all means having an undergrad is great, but in the end you'll need that advanced engineering degree. And reason being is because an undergrad degree gives you a foundation, and you're taking courses in all different subject areas. So you're taking one structures class and one geotech class, etc. So you're getting a good breadth of knowledge. But by getting a master's, that then gives you the depth and also teaches you how to go deep in that experience. Is it necessary right out of the gate? Not necessarily to have an advanced degree. You can get a really good entry-level position with an undergraduate degree. But in the long term, I think it's really important. Students ask me a lot, should I get my graduate degree right away, or should I, go get some experience? And I think it depends on the person. I know a lot of students, they finish their undergrad and they say, I am burned out, I'm done. I just want to go get a job and be done at 5 o'clock in the evening and, be able to pursue my hobbies and such. And other students who say, if I don't do this right now, I am never going to be able to go back to school. And so there's pros and cons, of course, to both, getting the master's right away as opposed to going out and getting some experience. But I think in the end, one needs to know thyself and and capabilities, and then understand that, all right, if I don't get it now and I decide to stay in engineering, I'm gonna have to do this in the long run. And one of the nice things about UTA, if you get your undergrad here, is they have a 5-year program to get your master's degree. So it's kind of minimal pain in that regard to going in and pursuing a master's.
Okay, so next we have, what companies or agencies would you say typically hire water resource engineers?
Yeah, it's across the board. So, everyone has water questions and water issues. So there's government agencies that are interested in hiring water resources engineers. So anything from the EPA to the Department of Energy needs water resources engineers. In private industry, working for a consulting company. And those can be environmental consulting companies or civil consulting companies. Petroleum engineering companies need environmental and civil engineers, and specifically in water resources, because wherever there's oil and gas, there is also water. And whether that be an underground issue and understanding water table dynamics, to installing pipelines in different extents, and that can be on the earth or in water. So yeah, lots of employment opportunities for sure.
Excellent. And could you tell us about your current position and what a typical day is like for you?
Yeah, sure. So I'm an associate professor of civil engineering with focus on water resources, and my typical day involves teaching classes to students, which I absolutely love, and getting them excited about water resources. And that's how I got excited about it. Is I had a professor who was just on fire about water resources. I said, hey, I might take classes from that person. Some of the other people are a little dry, so so I'll take classes from that person. And and also realized that I can make a good contribution as a water resources engineer, because there's good societal contributions, there's humanitarian contributions to water resources. I work on a lot of humanitarian projects in different countries and help design water systems, whether that be wells and water delivery systems, all the way to, there's a lot of overlap with water treatment systems and understanding fluid mechanics and hydrology. And I liked being able to do something that helped people. And I've always been passionate about working with other people and wanting to improve communities. And those communities being both built communities that we all live in and natural communities. And water resources spans both of those, which is exciting to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you're working, would you say you're working independently or you're working in a team with others?
I always work with teams,
Yeah.
and and very multidisciplinary teams. And I'm usually the only civil or the only water resource person on a team doing something else. And so much of my work is research oriented. So like I mentioned, I spend a lot of time teaching, but then about 50% of my time teaching, and then the other 50% doing research projects for different sponsors, whether that be the Department of Energy, the National Science Foundation, the Environmental Protection Agency, as well as different consulting companies. And we are looking at very multidisciplinary things. For example, I have a current project that looks at natural gas released from buried pipelines and how we can mitigate its occurrence. And at first look, you'd go, how is that a water resources kind of issue? But when you look deeper into the problem, there's a lot of water resources themes to it. I have another project that's looking at environmental discharges in border communities. So our border between the U.S. and Mexico, and trying to understand the industries that are discharging contamination into the environment, and what they are, and to what extent. And so it has a lot of environmental themes to it, but there's also a lot of water resources themes, because most of the environmental discharges are either air or into the air or into the water in this case. And so the folks that I work with are in other civil engineering disciplines, but also other disciplines in general. I have another project that I work with of all social scientists, because we're trying to understand the societal impacts of our decisions that we make, and how when we build things that has bigger societal implications. And no matter where that is, no matter if we're building something here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, or we're building something in another community in South America or in Africa, and how can we truly incorporate social dynamics to those projects. And then I also work with electrical engineers, of course, and mechanical engineers, petroleum engineers, so you name it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It's fun.
How would you say ethics are a part of your everyday work environment as
Sure.
a water resource engineer?
Yeah, so I'm a licensed professional engineer, so that have worked long enough and passed enough tests to be able to claim that. So, we have a code of ethics as professional engineers, and that code of ethics says that we will hold paramount the safety of people and the safety of the environment. And environmental sustainability. And that theme, and the theme of the entire code of ethics, just permeates through excuse me, all aspects of water resources engineering. We need to be able to trust our engineers, and be able to know that what they say they're designing, and putting that personally, what I'm designing, and the design recommendations that I give to a customer, that they are based on the absolute best of my knowledge and abilities, and that I'm operating within my abilities. So I'm a licensed professional engineer in civil engineering with a focus on water resources. And so what that means to me is that I'm not going to go out and stamp drawings of structural design, for example. But when I review stuff that's that's either environmental related or that's water resources related, that's in my wheelbox of abilities. So ethics is paramount to everything we do. We're very well trusted as engineers. You know, when you look at all of the reviews and statistics on the most trusted people in a community, you know, engineers are always up there. And the reason being is because our engineers in the past have done us well. And yes, you have your incidences and such. You know, we all do, but in general, it's a good practice that I think is built on ethics. Not to say that it's always easy to make ethical decisions. Not to say that ethical decisions are always made. But it's my hope that we can all strive to hold each other accountable and hold ourselves accountable to having a very high ethical standard.
Okay. Well, that concludes our interview.
Great, thank you.
Thank you so much.